Denzel Washington had been on countless stages, walked hundreds of red carpets, and given thousands of interviews throughout his legendary career. Yet none of that prepared him for what would become the most unexpectedly emotional moment of his public life. Not on a film set or at an awards ceremony, but live on television, in front of an audience unprepared for what they were about to witness. As Denzel sat down for what was meant to be a routine interview promoting his latest historical drama, the kind of project that blended his passion for justice, deep character work, and cultural commentary. But the evening took a profound and unexpected turn when the host, smiling with a mix of confusion and excitement, informed him on air that they had a surprise caller who insisted on speaking to Denzel directly, someone described only as a fan from abroad who says your work changed his life. And though Denzel, ever gracious, chuckled and leaned in to listen, no one, neither the host, the crew, nor the millions watching, anticipated that the voice on the line would belong to none other than Ibrahim Traoré, the young and fiercely independent leader of Burkina Faso, whose rise to power had captivated the African continent and challenged neo-colonial politics around the globe. And as his voice came through the studio speakers with a quiet, firm dignity, greeting Denzel respectfully and thanking him for taking the call, the atmosphere in the studio shifted from light-hearted entertainment to something historic and intimate, because Traoré didn't call to talk politics or even promote his position. Instead, he began recounting a story from his youth, describing nights spent in the dark under curfews, the sounds of conflict outside his home, and how during those uncertain, terrifying nights he would cling to a small TV that showed American films, and among them, the one that seared itself into his memory was Glory, specifically the haunting image of Denzel's character Private Tripp standing proud, tears in his eyes as he bore the lashes of history, and Traoré said, with deep reverence, "That moment changed me. It taught me that dignity is not given, it is taken through sacrifice and truth." And hearing those words, spoken so sincerely, with such personal weight, Denzel began to shift uncomfortably in his seat, not from embarrassment, but from a tidal wave of unexpected emotion swelling inside him. And the young leader continued, describing how each of Denzel's roles, from Malcolm X to Fences, from Training Day to the Book of Eli, were not just performances to him, but reflections of his struggle, lessons in conviction, proof that black men could be both vulnerable and powerful, principled yet unrelenting. And as Traoré spoke, recounting how those performances shaped his resolve, gave him courage to face military pressure, international interference, and the haunting weight of leading a people long denied self-determination, Denzel's famously stoic expression began to crumble, his eyes welling with tears, his hands trembling slightly as he gripped the arms of his chair, trying to remain composed in front of the cameras, but utterly overwhelmed by the spiritual enormity of what he was hearing. And when Traoré said, "You gave me strength when I had none left. You gave me an image of manhood rooted in integrity. I owe part of my soul's survival to your work." Denzel could no longer speak, choking back sobs, barely able to whisper, "Thank you," as the audience sat in stunned silence, witnessing a moment far bigger than television, bigger than fame, a collision of art and history, legacy and revolution. And what made the moment so transcendent was not the drama of tears, but the truth that flowed through them. A truth that connected the son of a Pentecostal preacher from the Bronx to a revolutionary leader from West Africa. Two men who had never met yet understood each other through a language older than words: resistance, dignity, and the burden of representation. And after a long pause, when Denzel finally composed himself enough to speak, his voice cracked as he said, "No award has ever meant as much as your words. I never imagined this." And Traoré, gracious and grounded, replied, "Perhaps that is the mark of true impact. It reaches those you never see." And with that, the call ended. But the emotional aftermath lingered, as millions who watched, live or later via viral clips, saw a different side of Denzel, not the controlled, regal performer, but a man humbled to tears by the realization that his art had helped carry someone through real-life warfare. A man reminded in front of the world that what we create can ripple into lives we'll never touch directly. And the public response was immediate and thunderous, with hashtags like "JQ Denzel Traoré," "June Art Meets Power," and "Legacy in Tears" dominating social media, while commentators and cultural critics wrote essays exploring how one man's performances had become a survival manual for another man's revolution. And many noted how rare it was to see black men cry publicly, not in defeat, but in reverent acknowledgement of shared struggle and honor. And Denzel, for his part, issued no grand statement, simply appearing days later at a charity event, where he quietly said to reporters, "That was God's work. I was just a vessel." And in those few words, he framed what millions had felt watching him cry, that greatness is not just about achievement, but about how deeply one's presence can reach into the soul of others. And for Ibrahim Traoré, who later confirmed the call on his official channels, it was not political theater but a private thank you made public by chance, a tribute from a fighter to the artist who unknowingly armed him with resolve. And for those who watched, whether in America, Africa, or anywhere the signal reached, it was a reminder that art and leadership, when sincere, speak the same language: courage, truth, and the power of tears that fall not from pain, but from profound gratitude.